The heart of exploration beats in every surfer. The journey is never over. There is no reward for stopping halfway. The spirit of exploration is the heart and soul of the Quiksilver Crossing.
It's a great adventure for me because I get to go around the world and meet people I've never met and get to see how they live their lives, you know, and essentially everyone's the same. I find that in the more remote spots, people seem happier and more at ease with themselves.
The crossing has four main objectives. First and foremost, to explore the world's oceans for surf.
One great thing about being on the crossing is there's always that potential you're going to find something. There's always that potential you're going to get to an island on its day and there's not going to be anyone there surfing.
Secondly, to contribute to the environment. This has been achieved by Quiksilver's collaboration with the United Nations Coral Monitoring Program, Reef Check.
Having a major company with a high profile like Quiksilver get involved and stick their neck out and say, yes, we think that reefs are important. We'd like to help out as part of our mission to spread the word about surfing, discovery of new surf spots, that we'd also like to do some environmental good and help to conserve these coral reefs. That has been a tremendously valuable thing and has received the highest level of recognition in the United Nations.
Thirdly, to have empathy for the local culture and customs. And lastly, to educate. To date, the crossing has found over 100 world-class waves, which as far as we know, have never been surfed before. This is the story of just a few. The first leg of the crossing explored the remote area of the Coral Sea between Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. The people who live here are as remote as any tribe in any African desert or South American rainforest.
The latest big ship like this came around here, it was in the 60s. And this will be the first of this size ship to come in here after that.
I was amazed when I looking through the binoculars at a beach in a village, and I saw something which I didn't believe existed. I saw a woman walking down the beach with nothing but a grass skirt on. Not a cloth skirt, I mean a real grass skirt. Like just out of the pictures of the 19th century James Cook stuff. I felt particularly privileged. I couldn't believe my eyes actually. I think it still exists.
After days of negotiating narrow reef passages, a small island finally appeared on the horizon. According to the maps, it seemed likely that it would be exposed to more swell than the other reefs they had been investigating for surf.
Martin decided to go check if there's a wave, if there's possible surf over there. And we came across a really fun left. Not too big, about head high.
So we paddled out, and then through the trees we just seen these sort of people rustling around, and then everyone like came out from behind trees and started hooting and stuff, and then All these canoes sort of paddled around the point and they all came in, and I know it's pretty good.
I asked a few of them if anybody'd ever surfed there, and they said they've never seen anybody surf there, or surf at all.
They were really amazed and thought we were a bit crazy surfing. Really good atmosphere, and the vibe was so good.
The kickouts they loved, or when we jump off the board, they just cheer and go crazy.
With the bigger swell, this could be a clean stand-up tube. But the importance of this nameless wave is that it was the first break the crossing discovered back in April of 1999. From what we know, these waves are probably breaking right now, without a surfer for 1,000 miles.
I would say my basic inspiration for surfing is just the curve of the wave. You know, you really have to sort of become part of the wave in a way, you know, because if you're not taking just the right line along the curve of a wave, you can't really do the maneuver you want. So that's the basics for sort of working off. Try to take anything I've tried to do before and either try to make that or try to you know, do a little more with it, maybe make it smoother or make it higher or make it rotate a little more or something.
Modern-day pirates of the Caribbean, surfers on nameless waves, brushed by ceaseless trade winds. It's not a lack of reefs or swell that determines wave quality in this area. Find a wave out of the wind, and you'll find gold in the world's clearest water.
I remember flying over as a kid and seeing some waves on one of the islands, and just thinking I wanted to try to get here and surf, and we finally made it. There were just no people in the water at all. We didn't see anyone with a surfboard. No sign of surfers being here at all.
Yeah, hang out with Kelly Slater, it's kind of like a dream for me.
The water was beautiful. I mean, you could see the bottom easily at 100 feet, no problem. It's a nice adventure, you know. There's just no one around. The people here were just saying that there's no surfing here. And we were just going, yeah, you're right. There's no surfing here. We just had 2 great days.
After months of exploring the outer reaches of Indonesia, the crossing invited a group of elite surfers aboard, including Kelly Slater, Dylan Graves, Tom Carroll, Ross Clark-Jones, Peter Mell, and Dave Kalama. The mission here was to experiment with tow surfing in all waves, big or small, as well as ride some of the world's most remote locations. Every surf adventure starts with some very tedious traveling. However, when a trip involves getting to the Quiksilver crossing, it requires days of transit lounges and canceled flights just to get to the boat.
What do you mean no trolleys on the thing? Works perfect.
One thing you notice is that the modes of transport get steadily smaller and smaller and less reliable, even downright dangerous. Amazingly, there was in-flight service. The air conditioning had to be turned off so that there was enough power to run the instrument panel. So by the time they took off, some of the fittest men on the planet were drenched in their own sweat.
Like a smack addict.
The pilot radioed ahead to get the ground crew to chase the cows off the runway.
I think it's kind of just working out the equipment, maybe looking for possibilities and new maneuvers, and really getting to understand the best angles to take with towing in, whether you want to come from behind the ski or get whipped at the wave, or the ski goes out the back. You know, there's a lot of different angles you can take to get onto a wave with a jet ski. And It's great because you see a wave 200 yards away, it's about to break, and you can get on it.
"17-year-old Puerto Rican grommet, Dylan Graves, couldn't stand watching a second longer, so he enlisted his own form of transport."
My first wave, I got towed in by a boat, a tin boat.
I was really excited when the trip started to try some different aerials and flips and things, and pulled off a move with the straps on that I haven't pulled off before, and that was pretty nice. But unfortunately, all the cameras missed it. When I started breaking my boards, I had to kind of take it easy because I was a little worried I wasn't going to make it all the way through the trip, and I didn't. Right after I pulled off that move with the straps on, I tried to flip, and I ate it pretty bad and twisted my ankle and my knee and put me out of the water for a couple days.
Eventually, Dylan got towed into some real waves.
This was my first time towing in, and it's really fun. You don't have to worry about like paddling into a wave and eating it on the drop or anything. You can get on the wave a lot faster and just have lots more speed coming into the wave, and I think that gives you a lot more confidence when you're on a wave, especially a big wave.
Like a vat of milk and splashed before my feet. The sun shone a cadence yellow and split ribbons through the street. And all the time she's thinking about, never wants to be let go. Like the swiller cheap masala from a cup that's made of gold, she spewed forth misconceptions of a heart forever soiled. And all the time she's screaming that she never wants to be let go. She cried, 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 and another man came down. And she cried, 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 she cried, she cried, she cried. She changed her name and put a stop to all that's Missy Brown. The flagrant yells and fairy tales of change that's going round. She mumbled, pushing cigarettes, how spring is really late this year. Happy brown, but today she's dressed in blue. She hailed for a taxi, it's just skirt above her shoe. I'm going now, I tell ya, there's nothing left in this here town. And she cried, 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 and another man came down. And she cried, 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 cried. Her name scream and put a stop to all that's messy brown. The flagrant yells and fairy tales, a change that's going wrong. She mumbled, pushing cigarettes, how spring is really late this year. Her favorite color's happy brown, but today she's dressed in blue. She hailed for a taxi, it's just skirt above her shoe. I'm going now, I tell ya, there's nothing left in this here town. And she cried, 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 and another man came down. Like a vat of milk and splashed before my feet. The sunshine, a cadence yellow and split ribbons through the street. And all the time she's thinking about, never wants to be let down. Like the swilling cheap masala from a cup that's made of gold, she spewed forth misconceptions of a heart forever soiled. And all the time she's screaming that she never wants to be let down. Cried, 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 and another man came down. And she cried, 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 and I fell to the ground.
With a mission to circumnavigate the globe, it is inevitable that you would encounter the best and the worst that the ocean has to offer. When the crossing left the gentle European waters of the Mediterranean and headed for remote North Africa, this included being pounded day after day by massive seas and copping 70-knot winds on the nose, motoring past 1,000-year-old lighthouses and taking shelter in remote towns rarely visited by the modern world. With this in mind, we were able to persuade Mar Ono from Japan and Stanley Badger from South Africa to join Australians Craig Wharton, Danny Wills, and Ryan Hipwood aboard the Quiksilver Crossing to follow a simple plan: find perfect waves. To entice the boys to get on board, we told them the area was lush, tropical, and warm. We didn't actually know what it would be like, but that's what we told them. Reality hit the minute Stanley rose from his bunk.
I woke up expecting to see crystal white beaches and palm trees, and ended up looking straight into a huge orange volcanic rock face. It's pretty incredible.
Another thing we forgot to mention was the wind. The wind blows 24/7, non-stop, and definitely not included in any travel brochure. And then there's the dust. There is dust in everything and everywhere. Oh, there's also the lack of swell. After 3 days of staring out to sea, the boys were sure we had stitched them up as some sort of cruel joke. But then a wave started to break. With all the dust and sand blowing off the desert, great sandbanks are not a problem around here. It just takes a little swell, and that's exactly what they got.
This wave here right now has been unreal. It's been a nice long point break. It's just perfect. So smackable little barrel section. It's good.
After a few more days of waiting, it seemed as though the first surf we had was complete luck. The swell had dropped and changed direction, so the captain decided to motor across a wide channel to a remote peninsula. On the way over, the wind gusted so hard it nearly blew the needle off the meter. What we found was one of the most perfect setups the Quiksilver crossing has ever discovered. With the right swell, this bay would produce a perfect 2-kilometer-long right-hander. Believe it or not, we didn't even surf it. Because in the next bay, we found an even better wave, more suited to this swell direction and with the wind straight offshore. It was firing. Danny was the first in the lineup, followed by Mar.
The waves, the people I've been on the boat with, surfing with Danny Wills every day, like helps your surfing out a lot.
probably had one of the best surfs of my life, I reckon, today. Just a few guys, and it was really sort of friendly environment, and the waves were just sick.
It's been a dream for me. I'd love to get back on the crossing again sometime soon.
If we didn't drag Danny from the water, he would have surfed for 2 days straight.
It's just awesome. Surfed for like 5 hours. Totally rooted right now, but just mindless, mate. Mindless. Can't believe I'm so stoked.
It's not a strange thing to discover waves when you are on board the Quiksilver crossing. That's its job after all. But the waves we scored were beyond anything we had hoped for. We're not sure if these waves broke all the time, or if these were the only days that they ever broke at all. But the one thing you do discover when you travel is the joy of discovery itself. And sometimes that is more fun than anything at all.
It's a wonderful experience just to come to a part of the world that I've never really explored before. It sparks all the cells in your body. Yeah, it's just like anywhere new and different, and you've never been before. It has a different smell and flavour in every way. It just looks so kind of prehistoric, and this was a land that was very, very alive, very fertile.
Whether it's the smell of rum, the heat, the guns, or the Latino style, there is a certain electricity about life in Central America that you just can't put your finger on. And in Central America, it's not just the surf that's worth exploring. The jungles and volcanic mountain ranges were also amazing. We climbed one to have a look. On most days we surfed, we could see at least 3 or 4 volcanic peaks on the horizon, some still smoldering in the distance. The other amazing thing is the steaming hot weather that causes the inevitable afternoon lightning storm.
Once nightfall comes here and the moisture just pours up off the land, and that humidity just gets broken up. Some of the most violent lightning storms I've ever seen.
Cameraman Chris Bryan was actually struck by lightning while filming in broad daylight. This nightly rain washes thousands of tons of volcanic soil into the Pacific every day. So even though it's clean, the water on the Pacific side is brown, while the water on the Caribbean side is crystal blue. Someone who's grown up surfing the brown offshore waves of Central America's Pacific coast is local surfer Jimmy Rotherham. Jimmy met up with the Quiksilver crossing while Tom Carroll was on board. He assured us that Central America had incredible waves. This is Jimmy's home break, right in front of his house.
We wake up early in the morning, like on a Monday or something like that, and there's no one out. You surf by yourself for like 2 hours. I'm so lucky to live here, to was born here and surf it for all my life.
I'm looking, it's so plain to see. I'm looking, it's a guarantee that you think you're a Porsche, but you're a 180B. Come on!
Here's another amazing Central American point break. It can only be accessed by boat because there are no roads, just wild horses on the beach.
Yeah, it was really good to catch up with the local surfer here, Jimmy Rockingham. By the time we got out in the water and got to see him surf, gosh, the guy just shone. He was, you know, the talent that, I don't know, where do you get that sort of stuff from? I don't know where that comes from. You know, you're born with that stuff, and to see that level and that enthusiasm, it just stoked just to take off on a wave and do what he does. It was really good. It helped me a lot in the water, and you know, I'm very grateful for that.
There was one spot that Jimmy wanted to keep quiet about until a decent swell arrived. He told us that this place can get as perfect as Pipeline, but with 1/10 of the crowd, and we believe it. The crossing scored incredible waves right through Central America, when we really expected to find very little.
I was really just watching for the crossing to come round across the Atlantic and down through the Panama Canal, and let's get out in the Pacific side and have a good look.
The crossing has already achieved its main objectives and more. It has crossed oceans through doldrums and typhoons. It has investigated reefs so remote that scientists barely knew they existed. It has discovered waves where people were certain there were none. And it has made friends that will never be forgotten. The journey of discovery continues. There is still a lot of stones left unturned. As the world shrinks, cities grow and economies boom and bust. The one commodity that is becoming rarer by the day is the untouched paradise. It would be comforting to know that at least one island, somewhere, lies unaffected as man speeds on by. Finding places like this has been the mission of the Quiksilver crossing since 1999, and Captain Martin Daly was told of a remote island off the coast of Africa, which might just be what we're looking for. On board for this trip were 6 times world champion Kelly Slater, Quiksilver soulman Hans Hagen, filmmaker Chris Malloy, and Australian champion Luke Munro. And to help strum away the hours, you've got Jack Johnson on board. The first thing you notice about Africa is that it's very big, very dry, and the animals are very impressive. Also, the street buskers are very different. It's home to some of the most incredible scenery and wildlife that you could ever imagine, sort of like living in the zoo. It's also the home to some very famous waves, like Jeffreys Bay. It would have been great to hang out and surf J Bay for a week, but the Quiksilver crossing was not here for the famous waves. Its main interest are the waves no one has ever heard of. According to Jacques Cousteau, there's an island somewhere off the coast of Africa, which he describes as the most beautiful island in the world. Captain Martin Daly heard a few stories about this island. Some even made mention of a great left-hand point break. But most of the stories were about how impossible it was to get there. The island and its surrounding waters are completely off limits to all vessels. The only person we could find that had ever been there was South African Olympic kayaking coach and intrepid adventurer Lee McGregor.
There was a couple of us in 1970. We took a yacht and we went exploring.
After 3 months at sea, and with only the aid of an old aviation map, Lee found the elusive island. The waves were epic.
When he shouted, "There's a tree," and we saw a tree, and that was our island. We said, we found it. This has got to be the most beautiful island in the world.
Martin found a dusty old map that had the island marked on it and said he would meet us there. He also found us a dusty old airline that was brave enough to land there. But we couldn't help wondering why he didn't join us on the flight. It was about then that the pilot told us he wasn't sure if there was an airstrip at all. Thanks, Martin. The pilot spotted a small plume of clouds on the horizon. The island was in our sights. And the left-hander looked good from the air. After a few near misses with the local bird life, we were greeted by the island's French guards, who were quick to recommend their favorite brand of mosquito repellent. These hardened soldiers live on the island with the solitary task of keeping an eye on the fragile marine biology and keeping unwelcome visitors away. It had taken some time to negotiate, but the Quiksilver Crossing's visit was welcomed in recognition of its association with the United Nations Reef Check Project. As we made our way to the Indies Trader, anchored on the other side of the island, we realized that Lee McGregor's memory of unaffected pristine reefs and super clear water was true. This really was one of the world's most beautiful places.
It looks like glass, like you're looking through a glass table or something off the side of the boat. And just dropping down for the first time, kind of getting the confidence in that, I don't know, something I'll never forget.
On board the Indies Trader, we catch up with marine biologist Jean Quad and Remy Garnier, who are on board for a rare opportunity of studying possibly the healthiest reefs in the world.
In light of the Reef Check program and also the French Coral Reef Initiative, we have been able during this week to implement the status of coral reefs of this remote island.
The swell had dropped, so everyone was keen to scuba dive the reefs around the island.
Did some scuba diving for the first time and just really saw, you know, a lot of patterns. of different breeds of fish and how they move and how they thrive. And I mean, it's just really the ocean in its purest form.
The marine life here is nothing short of amazing. Every dive was different, and you simply cannot get sick of jumping into such clear water and seeing the abundance of marine life. It's a snapshot of what all reefs might be like without the modern world.
A zillion turtles, and there was fish life like I've never seen anywhere. I mean, there was more fish there than I've ever seen in any place in the world.
Got to go scuba diving for the first time, and it was pretty amazing. Just when you first break the surface, start dropping down and just going deeper and deeper as you clear your ears, and then dropping off of a ledge. It was pretty amazing.
Although we spent a lot of time in the water, there was a lurking danger. Massive reef sharks. In other places the Quiksilver crossing has visited, reef sharks were rarely over 5 feet. In these waters, they were rarely under 5 feet, and often up to 12 feet long. Upon searching the island's coast for waves, we came across turtle tracks. Not 1 or 2 turtle tracks, but thousands. Alex Grillich has been posted on the island to monitor and document the turtles' behavior. He said we could film anything, but we were not to touch or interfere with the turtles in any way. Turtles lay their eggs at night, so we braved the horrendous mosquitoes to have a look.
Each turtle can lay between 1 and 200 eggs each time they come on the beach. So in one season they can come between 4 and 6 times to nest.
It was so hard to watch. You know, and people talk about like don't interfere with nature, and you know, you watch these shows and you see some poor little impala getting taken out by like a leopard, and they're like, well, we didn't want to interfere. Well, you know, I don't know, it's just so sad to watch. Like it was just, we totally wanted to interfere. We wanted to go scoop up the baby turtles and wait till it was dark and let them go, you know.
For most baby turtles, the plan is to leave the nest under the cover of night. For those who sleep in, there is danger above. The first few might make it through, until the ever-present lion bird spot the dash to freedom. Then we really didn't even want to look. Cameraman Mike Prickett is still in therapy. Although so many don't make the assault to the water's edge, this is one of the healthiest turtle populations in the world. Adult turtle numbers in local waters is estimated at over 100,000.
The objective is to make these islands not only natural reserves, but to give them an international status of protection, of conservation due to their pristine place.
Who would ever imagine scouting a remote shark-infested point on an isolated offshore island off of Africa, just to go for a surf? But one day, you find yourself doing it. The swell was still down, but the motoring didn't seem so bad with Jack Johnson on board to help strum away the time.
When I was about 14, I actually started learning how to play some chords on a guitar. And it was mainly just at first kind of just to be able to play sing-alongs on the front deck during barbecues. But I guess I was about 18 or so when I first started learning how to write my own songs. When I graduated from Santa Barbara in '97, then it was kind of like, now what I'm supposed to do, you know. And I knew a bunch of my friends that were pro surfers. I kind of started doing some music stuff and playing out live a little bit, and then I had a chance to record a record a while back, and I also had a chance to go off and make September sessions and do a really good surf trip, so I ended up doing that instead, and just made me excited to get back and do the music again. And we got really lucky, you know, just the people who kind of brought us under their wing, like Ben Harper and G-Love and Special Sauce, a bunch of cool bands, kind of took us out on tour with them. Or the neat feeling is usually when I get home in the first session I have after a month tour, it just brings me so much more joy just to be able to go out and surf, you know, than it does to be playing out live. And I think it's a positive thing because it's just, that's true happiness to me, and it's nice to be able to balance it that way.
The nature excursion was great, but they had really come here to surf, and as yet, no one had gotten their boards wet. After a week on the island, the trip was over for most of the crew. Jack had gigs to play, and Kelly and Luke had contests to compete in. As a going-away present, Chris helped Luke pack his bags. Customs officials helped him unpack them. The next day, Hans and Chris scored this right-hander to themselves. As far as the French guards know, no one has ever surfed it before. It would have been great to have flown halfway across the world and score a big perfect surf on your own private island. But that's just not the way it goes. Sometimes with all the planning and effort, you might not find what you're looking for, but you've just got to enjoy the ride.
I mean, it was just like, it was really pretty poetic to think that, you know, we did all this to get here to surf this magical raft, and everybody left, and right when they left, we got a good right, just funneling down the reef, and they were fun. It wasn't perfect, but considering how long it had been since we surfed, it was really, really fun, and Hans and I had it to ourselves. You read in the encyclopedia about the spot, you know, but when you show up and it's absolutely different, and there's things you never expected, that's the magic, really, for me.
Who knows? Maybe that left is 8 to 10 foot and perfect right now, and the only thing in the lineup are the turtles. One thing that the crossing has found for sure is that there are hundreds of perfect empty waves breaking every day, and most of the time there's not a surfer for 100 miles. Anyone who has set foot on this island would lay their heads at night knowing that at least one place on this planet is completely untouched. Despite its diabolical mosquitoes, its monster sharks, and absolute remoteness, we truly hope that this island remains this way forever. Leaving the Caribbean in early 2004 and heading north, the crossing joined the residents of America's eastern seaboard by having to deal with the violent force of some of the most destructive hurricanes in decades. The decision was made to charge full steam ahead to the safety of the Mississippi and America's vast inland waterways. But surf exploration duties were not put on hold. On Friday, September 23, 2004, Peter Mell and Tom Carroll joined the crossing in St. Louis, Missouri, to test out the latest addition to the Quiksilver Crossing's arsenal, the Quiksilver Crossing seaplane. The use of seaplanes is nothing new for the Quiksilver Crossing, which has utilized seaplanes for both transport and scouting missions throughout the Pacific and Indian Oceans during its 5 years at sea. However, this latest edition of a Grumman HU-16B Albatross has been made for the Quiksilver Crossing's current mission in North American waters to allow long-range exploration into the extreme northeast of the continent. Tom and Peter couldn't get over the idea that once again on the crossing, they had a seaplane at their disposal.
She's ripe and ready for the job, to get out there and sort of land us in some specific areas, go and do search explore missions and get a good idea about a little bit more about what's out there.
This trip will be a milestone for the crossing and for surf exploration worldwide. It will be the first time this type of aircraft has ever been used for serious surf exploration. It will also mark the furthest that the Quiksilver crossing has conducted surf exploration from the equator since its March 1999 launch. Tom just couldn't get enough of the plane. He sat next to it, did laps around it, petted it, climbed around on it, and eventually broke his nose on it. After smashing the nose of his surfboard, we had to tie him up before he broke anything else. After a quick look at the coastline, the first stop was this old fishing port. When Canadians talk about real fishing, this is what they mean. Yes, that is a tree saw. Remember this the next time you're filleting a 2-pound trout with your Swiss Army knife. They got to talking with some of the locals, who told him that you can surf here even when the swell's not up. Just go and stand over there on that mud flat and wait for the tide to come in.
I'm ready to tackle whatever it gives us.
We're going to ride a standing wave in a river. I'm trying to get a kind of little mental rehearsal.
This is Peter Mell waiting to go for a surf, practicing for his standing wave. You don't want to practice too long. When the tide comes through here, it really hammers. It's not bad for a novelty wave, but when you've got the crossing seaplane waiting, a standing wave in a river just doesn't cut it. Nothing can prepare you for the feeling of taking off on water. Seeing the ocean drop away underneath you, it just never gets boring. When you're flying in a commercial airliner, you often get a glimpse of the coastline near the airport. For any surfer, that's a thrill. But when you're actually flying at low altitude and following the coastline specifically looking for waves, you quickly realize just how incredible a plane can be for surf exploration. They finally did find a wave worth riding, despite the lack of swell.
Basically, I said to the guys, well, you know the old story, the first guy to paddle out gets to name it.
Someone's got to get out there and name it.
Hurry up! I'm going to call it mine!
There was boards and wetsuits and things flying everywhere. There was people getting knocked over, and then there was a paddling race. And Tommy won it. Find somewhere, land, have a surf. If it's really good, get the boat to follow up and camp out.
More than anything, this trip into one of the world's least hospitable surf zones was a test for the seaplane, which it passed without a hitch.